credit markets, and all of this is a testament to the leadership of Mr. Wheeler, Ms. O'Connell, and of course, City Council. So if we go to the first page, and let's see.
Whisper louder, Tanya.
Got it.
Okay.
All righty. So again, Davenport is financial advisor to the city. We assist with debt and capital planning and also interacting with the rating agencies. If you move to the second bullet, over the past several months, we at Davenport worked with city staff to develop a capital funding plan for $23 million. This recent bond issue, the 2018 general obligation bonds, made up that first phase of funding. And all of this was completed with the approval of City Council, specifically back in late May. Council adopted authorizing documents for the bond issue. Moving on to page 2, the city currently has 2 credit ratings. One is from Moody's Investor Services and one is from Standard & Poor's. The city's very strong AA2 rating from Moody's was affirmed, and the city's AAA rating, which is the highest possible rating, was affirmed by Standard & Poor's. Moving on to page 3, I wanted to give you a picture of where the city's credit ratings lie. On the right, S&P AAA is the highest possible, and on the left, the AA2 rating from Moody's is solidly in the very strong range. So on the next couple pages, we give some of the commentary from the rating agencies that they provided in their rating report, and which was based on our meetings with the rating agencies. S&P said the city has very strong economy, very strong management, strong budgetary performance, very strong budgetary flexibility, very strong liquidity, a strong debt and contingent liability profile, and a very strong institutional framework. And it's important to note that the use of very strong and strong is very specifically in the context of S&P's rating methodology. Very strong denotes the highest possible commentary in that given category. On the next page is some of the commentary from the Moody's rating report. Some of the strengths of the city are its strong resident wealth levels, stable reserves, so that means your strong unassigned fund balance and total fund balances, conservative management supported by fiscal policies, which you've adopted. Challenges are a smaller tax base than other similarly rated credits, meaning local governments, and a debt burden that's slightly higher than other similarly rated cities nationwide. Further down the page are a couple factors that could lead to an upgrade and factors that could lead to a downgrade, which is part of the framework that Moody's likes to give as part of its methodology. Now moving on to page 6. So as a result of following the credit rating meetings, the city priced the 2018 bonds through a competitive public sale. The city's bonds were very well received. 9 different banking institutions submitted a bid to buy the city's bonds. That's actually the same number as the city received back in 2016 when the 2016 GEO bonds were priced. And this demonstrates a very strong level of comfort and desire for the city's debt. The winning underwriter in this sale was Robert W. Baird. And finally, the numerical summary of the results. During the capital planning process over the last several months, planning estimates were based around an interest rate of 4.5%. As a result of the competitive public sale, the city was able to lock in fixed rate financing over 21 years at an all-in interest rate of 3.45%. That's a full 100 basis points, a full percentage point, better than planning estimates. And finally, what does that mean for the city's payments over the life of the bonds? On average, payments will be about $225,000 less per year than estimated during the planning process. And in total, that adds up to $4.8 million less over the life of the bonds when compared to the planning estimates. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions from council.
That the debt burdens for the city were slightly higher than similarly rated cities. Okay? Was that before or after this loan, or after these bonds?
That it takes into account the city's bonds,
Okay.
this current issue.
Okay, any other questions of council? Griffin, thank you, and please take the message back to the home office there. Appreciate everything that Davenport has done. It's been a long process. You're right, we closed on the bonds. We're very thrilled with the outcome being below what we modeled together. And we, as always, appreciate the leadership that you bring and all the expertise that you bring to the market. Just let everybody back at the home office know. Great job from the city of Poquoson. Okay?
Thank you.
All right,
And
thanks.
on behalf of David and Kyle, thank you for the opportunity to work with the city.
Thank you. All right. Then is the special presentations, and next item, we'll come back to appropriating those funds in just a minute, but the next item on the agenda is an audience for visitors. If there's anybody that would like to talk to council about any of these subjects, now is that time. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the audience for visitors and ask council for approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve our minutes of our regular session of June 25th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve the regular session of June 25th. Questions or comments of council? Seeing none, Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman, Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews,
Aye.
and Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Very well. And the work session?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the work session minutes of the same night.
Is there a second? Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve the minutes of the work session as well. Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman, Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Very well. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and this is a public hearing for an ordinance appropriating the additional funds to the various governmental funds for the Poquoson. In short, this is appropriating the proceeds of the financing that Davenport just briefed us about. Very positive outcome on those, and appropriating those to where we said we would appropriate those to. So, yeah.
So in front of you, typically you would bring this in front of the budget, but we wanted to make sure we had the bond sale closed before bringing it back to you. So this gives us now the authority to put it on the books and put it to the designated projects.
Okay. Any specific questions? You want to go through where the just for the record, where
Absolutely.
what funds are going into?
So you've got two funds that these funds are going to support. You've got debt service fund, which is actually the interest for the debt that we borrowed. Of course, when we budgeted for 2019, we didn't take this into consideration. So part of the money that we received is $365,174. That'll go for interest payment in 19. So that's under the debt service fund. So we have to show it as other financing sources and, of course, other financing uses. Those accounting technical terms that we love to use.
Okay.
The second fund is the major fund. It's the capital projects funds. And there, we're going to reflect about $18 million going in as other financing sources. And then we're going to show the middle school renovation of $17,001,100, the bus replacement of $68,000, The fire pumper, that's the second piece that we need for the fire pumper of $135,000. The HVAC, which is an additional 4 units of $277,000. The TMDL, unmandated piece of $150,000. And then what Griffin pointed out, the all-in cost for the interest rate includes the cost of issuance and the underwriter's fee of $576,135.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, Randy?
I just want an
Clarification?
additional comment, if I could. It's not a clarification, but just an explanation.
Okay.
For council members, it's been a long time since we've done a new money borrowing. And the reason for the public hearing, since this did not happen with your budget adoption, is anytime you amend your budget by more than $500,000 or 1%, whichever lower, you have to go through this process. And so this is a required procedural step just to make sure that the public knows what we're doing when changes are made to the overall budget of a significant enough nature.
Questions or comments of council?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Could you just explain what happens if, just for information purposes, if, say, for example, the bus replacement or the middle school renovation came in under the funds that we're budgeting, because these are just budget numbers?
Well, right now, if they come under, well, I know for the bus replacement, that is a true fact number. For the middle school, if it comes under budget, we would come back to city council, i.e. request for additional projects to use that money. So it would actually go to undesignated projects for the schools or for the city. Let's hope it comes under
If I
budget.
could, Mayor, in an additional clarification, the way that the borrowing is set up, it could support any other approved capital project. So that would, we couldn't use it for just anything, but you could use it for something that is approved in your capital project. We certainly have additional things associated with the Phase 2 projects where that money could go as well, but those would be decisions that you would make as council.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and I'll open that public hearing to hear if there are any citizen concerns or agreement with this ordinance. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask council for consideration.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance appropriating additional funds to the various governmental funds of the city of Poquoson, Virginia for fiscal year 2018 and 19.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve the ordinance appropriating these funds, and again, primarily to the middle school project and a couple of other mop-up things for the city itself. Right before we take a vote, Randy, I would, and I can save this for council directives, but I'm going to mention it now while it's on my mind. Okay, so we've had a very structured process to get us to this point. I'd like, in the coming month or so, month to 6 weeks, for you and Jennifer to sit down and tell us where you're going from here to when completion of the program is for the middle school, just so that we have something to follow along.
I actually have a draft schedule prepared by the superintendent. I will verify with her that it is still the current one and get it to you all prior to your next meeting for certain, hopefully by the end of this week.
Very good. Thank you. All right, we have the motion made and seconded. Any final questions or comments on this ordinance? Seeing none, Evie, please.
Excuse me, Councilwoman Andrews,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
Aye.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the vote carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, very well. Next item is under unfinished business, and this is something that we discussed at the last work session about a week ago. And this is a resolution of support for smart scale funding for a series of capacity enhancements to Victory Boulevard between Route 134 and With Creek Road in Poquoson. How would you like to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I bring to your attention at your place is a line-in, line-out version of this resolution in red. We put it in red as well as line-in, line-out so that you would see the exact changes that were made. The reasons for these changes is after your book was put out and put out to the public, VDOT communicated back to us that the third option, the Poquoson segment Remember, there was sort of the version of the segment that matched the total project, and then there was a stripped-down version, which, among other things, removed the walking path, or excuse me, removed this expanded shoulder. VDOT informed us, again, after the book went out, that those segment alternatives A and B essentially were so close to each other that under their processes they couldn't consider them both. So this resolution then, as modified, eliminates that stripped down version of the Poquoson only segment following VDOT's direction to us that they would not consider it.
Okay, so basically, as I understand what you said, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're going with York County and then we're all going to get it, or nobody's going to get it.
We'll have two applications, sir. One is the entire project, which includes the work that's been done with ourselves and York County, working with VDOT. And then that project spans two localities.
Right.
Then our second application breaks down just the Poquoson segment of that same project to allow it to be scored separately. That is similar to what York County did with the last application, where they got one of their small pieces scored because as a standalone segment, it qualified. So again, the whole project gets submitted. We are carrying that application on behalf of both localities, and then our section alone is also being submitted so that it can be scored if in case the entire segment did not receive enough points in smart scale, that perhaps our segment, if judged on its own, might be more competitive. York County is doing the same thing.
I understand. Okay, so therefore, item 1 on here is the joint with York County. Item 2 is our
Yes, sir.
project alone. Okay, now I think I understand. Does anybody else have a question about that particular point? Okay, I guess it was just me. All right. If nothing else, is somebody prepared to make a motion that we move forward with this resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution of support for smart scale funding for a series of capacity enhancements to Victory Boulevard between Route 134 and Wythe Creek Road in the city of Poquoson as amended and corrected.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded that we approve the amended resolution. And if there's no other comments, then Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Cox.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is under new business, and this new business is, we have 3 items here. Ordinance making additional appropriations and transfers, or basically bookkeeping movements for 2017 and 2018. And then an ordinance making additional appropriations, same thing, basically a bookkeeping movement. Okay?
Okay, so you should have, first of all, you should have an amended memo in front of you for 18. So this memo or ordinance basically appropriates additional funding for the Children's Services Act. Each year, this is a routine that we don't know, of course, how much we're going to spend year after year and how much we're going to receive from the state. So this right here provides an additional $145,000 that we're going to receive, that we are going to spend. Separate from that, you also have $1,500 that we received for the carousel display. It's not enough right now, but we want to house it in the capital project. So when we have the true cost and the true funding, we can do the project. And this is all for FY18.
Okay, thank you very much. What is the total cost on the carousel display?
At one point, it was $2,000 to $2,500.
Okay, so about $1,000 away. All right, I just want to know that. I got it. We're going to house it so it can't be used for something else.
Correct, and we're still taking donations, so if we get a donation in, we'll continue to count for that.
Thank you very much. All right, any questions on that?
Just a status report, Gene, we're still waiting on 2 bids on that.
Okay. Anything else from council? If not, somebody prepared to make a motion on the first ordinance?
Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriations and transfers for fiscal year 2017 and 18 as amended.
Second.
A motion made and seconded. Any questions of council or comments? Seeing none, Evie, please.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Councilman Hux.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried with a vote of 7-0.
Okay, and the second ordinance, making additional appropriations for 2018 and 2019.
I figure since we're continuing on with the bookkeeping, we'll go ahead and bring the state has provided libraries their true numbers, so we have the ability now to add another $2,308 that revenue is going to receive from the state and that Jessica can spend on books and materials. Also, we're excited that we've received a Clean Vessel Act that Charity and Bob worked hard for, that we're able now to receive grant funding to do that pump out on the pier. So this appropriates the grants fund that we're going to receive, and the additional match that we need is going to be covered by the sewer fund.
Okay, and is that is that Renz Road?
Yes.
Renz Road Pump Out Station?
Currently inoperable.
Right. Got it. Okay. All right, is anybody prepared to make a motion on this one?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance making additional appropriations for fiscal year 2018 and 19 as stated.
Second.
Motion made and seconded that we approve this ordinance as well. Questions or comments? Seeing none, Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Hux.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman. Councilman Green.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Councilman Canella.
Aye.
Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay. Final item on the agenda this evening is a, let's see, a resolution authorizing the placement of no parking signs between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. at Thomas Jefferson Rollins Nature Park area, or Amory's Wharf, as I refer to it. So Randy, how would you like to proceed on this?
I'll introduce it, and I think the chief would like to speak to it as well. This item came to our attention and ultimately to your attention. Recently, we had received phone calls from the business owner down there at the end of Amory's Wharf who reported repeated nighttime vandalism, trespass, shenanigans. And so we worked with the police department to see if there wasn't something we could do to help mitigate that, recognizing that Amory's Wharf is the end of a very long road, and were some things we could do. So we discussed it. The chief and the police department's recommendation, which I'll let the chief speak to, is here. But what we're trying to do is to help the business owner and also just, help us deal with some of the issues that we regularly have at the end of the street there.
Okay. Chief.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Wheeler, thank you for inviting me to speak a little bit on this topic. Even prior to the Diggs family making some of the complaints about the commercial property there, we had received anonymous complaints from several residents who live near the area, particularly about noise, speeding vehicles leaving the area, four-wheeling on city property and damaging some of our newly planted grass. And periodically, the police department responding down there doing patrol checks have discovered some criminal activity and then some activity that would be better suited for the privacy of someone's home, not necessarily criminal in nature. So these are the kinds of activities that are happening down there because of its location and because it's pretty dark down there at nighttime. We think that in order to address the complaints from the citizens and also to still maintain this area for a purpose where people can enjoy the sunset, the sunrise, and still go down there and enjoy that area, we felt like the no parking signs would give the police department the authority to encourage people to leave the area late at night when it was dark, so those kind of activities would be discouraged. And it's not so much for the desire to do enforcement activity there, but it gives us an enforcement arm to use to ask people to leave so we don't have the kind of activity occurring that we've had complaints, particularly the criminal activity, vandalism and trespassing. So it's a beautiful area, and a lot of people do enjoy going down there and looking out at the water and looking at the sunset and the sunrise, and we don't want to discourage that. But during the hours of 10 to 4, after discussing this with the leadership team at the police department, we agreed that this seemed to be the prime time when most of the activity was occurring. So your vote, we will have at least something now that we can enforce and ask folks to leave so we can discourage that kind of activity.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of the chief?
Chief, do you have any idea of what time most of the criminal activity, as you called it, is occurring?
Well, the things that we've discovered are happening during the hours between that 10 and 4. I don't know exactly how early some of it's happening, but certainly it's in the nighttime hours. Normally we get calls in the morning, or we'll get a call from a residence about disorderly activity down there, including we've had calls of discharging firearms down there at certain times, destroying property using BB guns, that kind of call. Not anything that would in and of itself constitute violent criminal activity, but destroying property at a cost to somebody, a private citizen's property or a commercial property.
If you move that time limit up, say 11 p.m. or midnight, do you think, what effect would that have?
I wouldn't go past 11. I mean, certainly 11, we can work with that, but I think if you get to midnight, I don't want us to be in a position where we facilitate such activity by allowing them to do it on public property. I don't know what use it would be for people to be down there at midnight on that property. So, again, we don't want to discourage the use of the property at reasonable hours, and I think 10 p.m. is reasonable. I think 11 is reasonable, but certainly not 11 to 4. I don't see why anybody would need to be down there. Even the commercial seafood operations aren't down there doing anything until after 4 a.m. So I think it's fair. I think it's appropriate. And the good news is we can adjust it down the road. It's nothing that we have to live with forever.
Is that where the 4 a.m. came from?
Yes, sir. We want to make sure that anybody who was coming down there doing any kind of commercial or private fishing activity would not be interfered with.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
All right, Council, how would y'all like to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the placement of no parking between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. signs at the Thomas Jefferson Rollins Nature Area Park.
Second.
A motion made and seconded, we go with it like it is. Questions or comments?
Could we modify it to 11 and maybe come back and look at it in, I don't know, a couple months, 3 months, and see if that solves problems?
I'd prefer that we go with the police department's recommendation. They know when it's occurring, and I can tell you from experience at the yacht club at the Point, as soon as it gets dark, the same crowd comes out there and starts spinning their tires, throwing bottles, doing whatever they shouldn't be doing. There's not much we can do about it at the Point, but I think we should go with their recommendation. If it turns out that it's a little too early, we can change it that way, but I'd rather go with their recommendation first.
I'm familiar with some of that activity at the Point.
Could we then go with the recommended time period with agreement to review this in 6 months?
Well, I think we can review it anytime we want to. It's just a matter of letting the mayor know that we'd like to bring it back to us. And if it seems to be something we need to do, I think we should request that. I don't want to put the burden on them that 6 months from now they've got to come back to us with a lengthy report that's not necessary.
Well, maybe not a lengthy report, but just let us know how it's doing, or if they're observing any activity still at 10 o'clock.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that particular thing, and I'll just tell Randy, bring it back right now, 6 months from now.
10-4.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion made and seconded that we approve this for 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
What time does the business close? I'm assuming 5, 4 or 5?
I don't know that I would classify that as a normal business operation down there. It's,
I would say
certainly
that
not from my observations of it, it's not a normal operating business with any hours.
I'm just thinking at what time would people not need to be down there or not normally be down there?
there is not at present a retail component to that. So the people that are working it are working that site, and that is privately owned. So this would not pertain to that.
Okay.
So people that had lawful permission to be on that property would continue to be able to do so.
Okay.
And let me expand a little bit further, and this would allow us to get some feedback on how many people find that that's an unbearable issue to have the no parking there at 10 o'clock, okay? And if we don't get any feedback that says, hey, we can't stand this, or any reasonable reason why it should be changed or extended, we at least have that opportunity.
My personal opinion, and this is why it's here to discuss, I think we're going to find people down there at 10 o'clock at night. That's awfully early. That's, I don't know who we're trying to protect against here, but 10 o'clock at night is, I know a lot of people riding around at 10 o'clock at night to look at different observations. So I'm not going to support it, but I'm good to bring it back in 6 months if the majority of council feels like this is
I
the
mean,
way you want to go.
I'm good with 11. The chief said he thought 11 was reasonable, too.
So we have a motion made and seconded. I guess we'll go through and vote on that motion.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask the chief one more question?
Yes, sir.
I've, got somewhat mixed feelings. We talked before the meeting, and then I was on board with pushing it back. But, after a short conversation with you and trusting your team, I agree with, your recommendation. But I do agree with the mayor that 10 might seem a little bit early. Do you think if we moved it to 11, it defeats the purpose? Or do you think that's okay?
No,
'Cause
11 o'clock
I
won't
wanna do
defeat the
what you-
purpose because we have the violations that occur at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, we can try 11, and then if I feel like we need to come back and offer a different recommendation, we can make that recommendation to you. If you feel comfortable with 11 to 4, we will enforce that and start from that point. And then if that's not satisfactory, I'll speak to the manager and we'll go from there. But I mean, this is what we came up with in our discussion. There was a lot of things we looked at, but our primary goal was to preserve the area for those that legitimately have talked to us and talked about the things they enjoy about that, particularly sunrise, sunset. And we have, like I said, we have a commercial business going on down there, working with crabs right now, and they've complained. And then we've had complaints from some of the residents, So we definitely want to keep it to a time where the activity that's loud is not during when people are trying to go to sleep. They had to get up and go to work in the morning. And so we've had some of those complaints, loud tires squealing, four-wheeling it, those kind of things. That needs to stop well before 11 o'clock. So, in your wisdom, you guys make a decision and we'll enforce it. But we certainly will provide you some feedback in 6 months and let you know if we feel like that's not early enough.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, so we still have the motion to adopt it as is. So how do y'all want to proceed? I'm ready to go to a vote. Huh? Okay. All right, so Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman,
No.
Councilman Hucks,
Aye.
Councilman Green,
Aye.
Councilman Canella,
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews,
No.
Mayor Hunt.
No.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried with a vote of 4 to 3.
Okay, thank you very much. So comments to the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a longer list than normal. And since we're not on TV, part of what I have to convey is really less germane, but so I'll go really quick.
Yeah.
Just a reminder to council and any members of the public that may be able to hear us if we've got anything going out of this over the channel. The U.S. Corps of Engineers is having a public meeting this Thursday, the 26th, one at 2:30 and one at 6:30 in council chambers to discuss the proposed Corps remediation plan for Plum Tree Island. It's important for several reasons. One, because it bills itself as the final remediation plan, which says to me that once this remediation is done, they're done. And when you couple that with the fact that they're proposing to spend, I think if memory serves, about $15 million in the 8 remediation areas, which will result in no public access to those areas, the proposal is sort of a perpetual off limits for that, if you combine that with with our ongoing and frustrating efforts with the Fish and Wildlife Service to obtain public access to select portions of the refuge which were not affected by the bombing and related activities. The federal government is in the process of potentially forestalling all access to the refuge, not just short-term, but for most, if not all of it, perhaps perpetually. So I bring that to your attention. Also, relating to the Fish and Wildlife Service, Senator Warner's staff, specifically Drew Lumpkin, has been helpful in helping us get the attention of the folks at Fish and Wildlife. You may recall approximately 17 months ago, we provided written comments on the draft plan for the entire refuge. We also participated in a public comment period on the same plan, which was on or about May of that year. So that was not this May, but the previous one. The Fish and Wildlife Service has not addressed those comments yet, but according to the person that supervises the refuges which includes ours, they will be hiring a new refuge manager in the next 3 or 4 months, and one of his or her primary responsibilities out the chute will be coordination with us to see what they can do. So it's been a long process, and we stay at it. And again, thank you to Senator Warner's staff for helping get the attention on that. 2 other things go much quicker. Well, one will. Just let the council know that tomorrow we will anticipate taking delivery of the replacement fuel tank. Long time coming tomorrow, rain or shine. And I'll just take a moment to highlight and thank both our police department for their how do 4 police officers deal with 5 stolen cars, some of which going in different directions. The answer to that is very well, safely, and with a little bit of help from York County and the next day with the city of Hampton. So kudos to them. The best part of that whole thing was that no one was hurt during that process, and it goes on from there. All of the vehicles were recovered, and at least 4 arrests were made. Lastly, to bring to your attention, you may have seen it in a recent weekly report, we had an unusual and very successful, given the nature of the incident, water-related fire and rescue response. Recently, a gentleman was severely hurt. He was fortunate that one of the people with him was a Navy rescue diver who knew what to do. Stabilized the gentleman until we got there. He stabilized him in the water as opposed to trying to put him onto the boat. That definitely helped lead to a successful effort. We were able to stabilize the person in the water as opposed to taking them out. And then we made a handoff to a York County unit on the shore. And while the gentleman did have a serious injury, the last I heard, there was no paralysis relating to that. And that is a very welcome miracle, and thanks to all involved, including the Almighty who helped out with that. And that's all I have, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Council directives. Bud?
Just like to welcome our new employees and wish everyone a continued and happy summer.
Very good. Jana?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Nothing really. I think things are going really, really well, and just want to reemphasize the manager's comments. Our public safety, both fire and police, have just done exceptionally well in several other instances other than the ones he mentioned, so they're doing very good.
Councilman Hux?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make it known that I intend to be present at the meeting this coming Thursday with the Army Corps of Engineers to represent constituents of Poquoson, and I would encourage my fellow council members to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Green?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, 2 things. One, the food bank tomorrow, rain or shine, 10 to 1 at the old City Hall building. will be hosted by the American Legion Post 273. So everybody that's eligible, please come out. We'll have plenty of food. Also today, I had the pleasure of meeting the new director of the New Horizons Regional Education Center as part of the New Horizons Foundation. Some of my fellow foundation members met with him and seems to be very energetic, and I think he's going to do a great job. I would like to get him in the near future to come talk to us.
That'd be great.
I think
That
the
would
New
be great.
Horizons needs to be more advertised than it is. Thank you.
Very good. Councilman Canella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it pretty brief this evening. Just like to echo what the Vice Mayor said about our public safety. Police and fire, they do an incredible job, especially with, the resources they have. And, one being that fireboat, I know there was a little skepticism, but that just shows you, a life was definitely saved by using it, and that's not something to shake a stick at. Thank you.
Okay. Great job to public safety, always doing a great job. The rescue was, and the car situation being the theft in the city, very well handled. I would try to impress on council, because Randy and I we did meet with Mr. Lampkin of Senator Warner's staff. I will tell you that if the Army Corps closes out their activities on Plumtree Island, says enough is enough, it would put us back many, many years in trying to get them refunded to do something different. Very important. That's why we sent the letter to them. It would be very helpful, I think, if all of council showed up to the public hearing. We don't all have to stay and speak, but to let them know that we are interested. Because once the Army Corps goes away and says, we've done everything we're going to do, there won't be a funding stream. They won't touch it again. It's interesting. If you take anybody out there, we've taken our representatives, being Representative Taylor. We've taken our previous one, Representative Whitman. We've taken now a member of Senator Warner's staff out to Cow Island to try and impress on them the need for public access. It's not lost on any of them the common sense of the situation, but it's been 4 or 5 years that Randy and I have been taking them out there and pressing on this. We're not going to move this needle unless we all get involved. And I would just ask us to all get involved. Because I think that is the one access that I think that people of Poquoson have deserved, quite frankly. I mean, Army Corps and Fish and Wildlife own more than a third of our city, if not more. I think the benefit to the city of Poquoson is a measly $5,000 a year, as I recall, for the payment on the services and access to that. And this is just a small thing that I think that the federal government can offer to the citizens of Poquoson to have some type of access. So it's very important to me because I'm afraid that once we close out this chapter, there will be no other. So if we can get that support, I would appreciate it. And yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to ask a question about that. Randy kind of alluded to that earlier today in another meeting. As I understand it right now, it's off limits. They're going to come in and spend $15 million, and it's still going to be off limits. Does that pretty much sum it up?
That is correct, sir. As it relates to the 8 identified areas that were impacted by the munitions, at the end of the day, they would still be off limits. There remains a portion of the total refuge that is not one of the 8 munitions impacted areas, and that's Cow Island and portions on that side.
So very, very complicated, but we're looking for them to just protect the ability to get to the beach areas. We are not interested in the federal government cleaning up Plumtree Island. We know that is a far stretch, but we are interested in that they would clean up certain areas that are higher rating to us as citizens, and that somehow they would protect the refuge both of which we brought up with Senator Warner's staff, but protection of the refuge is also not addressed in either study at this time. So there's no hardening of the shoreline, it continues to erode, more and more munitions end up in the bottom of the river, the signs just keep moving out into the water, right? So all we're after is protect what's there, don't try to clean it up, it's mostly marsh, we got that. And have some access to the highest points on there where people can observe and enjoy the refuge. And I think that's our total message. I don't think it's too much to ask, nor too little, so. Go ahead.
Mr. Southall, the Corps of Engineer meeting is this Thursday. They actually have two meetings that day in this room. The first is 2:30 and the second is 6:30. You can go to either. Also, the Corps is accepting written public comments through August the 17th.
Okay, get off my soapbox now and ask council for motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, council, can I?
What, I could ask this after me, but what time is everyone planning on attending? I know
I'll be at the
Councilman Hux, you said you were going to 6:30?
6:30.
Okay.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded, we adjourn. Evie, please.
Certainly. Councilman Green?
Aye.
Councilman Hux?
Aye.
Councilman Canella?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Andrews?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? And Mayor Hunt.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Very good, and we are adjourned.